This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, we begin with the diplomatic arrival at the White House. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington for high-stake talks with President Trump. While diplomats convene in D.C., the people of Cuba are struggling to move as fuel supplies dry up. Havana streets are quiet as buses disappear in a fuel crisis. With state transport halted, residents rely on electric tuk-tuks as U.S. sanctions tighten oil supplies. And in Colombia, a state of emergency has been declared as rising waters devastate entire communities. Floods have swamped Monteria and Cordoba after relentless rains. At least 14 are dead and tens of thousands of homes destroyed, with a night curfew now enforced. Meanwhile, Beijing is issuing a stern warning over potential provocations in the Taiwan Strait. China warns of catastrophic disasters if Taiwan sparks conflict. The warning follows reports Taipei is weighing a preemptive strike using U.S. weapons, a move Beijing calls escalatory. In Argentina, a labor dispute within the police force has taken over. Santa Fe officers seeking higher pay faced off with colleagues. A sit-in at Rosario HQ led to barricades and criminal probes for abandonment of service. Back home, a legal bar rule could derail the impeachment bids against the vice president. 3 complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte may be dismissed under the 1-year bar. Analysts say they could violate the ban on multiple proceedings in a year. And finally, a Hollywood director and a rock star are demanding their work be pulled from a new documentary. Paul Thomas Anderson and Radiohead's Johnny Greenwood want their music cut from Millennia documentary. They say the Phantom Thread score was used without approval. And Franco Baranda, Newsline World starts now. The streets of Havana have fallen silent as public buses vanish due to an acute fuel shortage gripping the island. With state transportation at a virtual standstill, local residents are turning to electric tuk-tuks as their only remaining lifeline to navigate the capital amid tightening U.S. sanctions that have choked off oil supplies. More on this from Jane Cadnita.
The familiar rumble of city buses in Havana has been replaced by the quiet hum of electric tuk-tuks. As the fuel crisis deepens, public transportation has effectively ceased to exist for many. Inspectors from the Provincial Transportation Directorate are now forced to use any available state-owned or private vehicles to ferry exhausted workers who have spent hours hitchhiking on street corners. Local officials explained that without fuel, the city's movement is currently at a total standstill.
Con los carros estatales tratar de trasladar el personal en ellos, porque no tenemos petróleo, no tenemos nada, todo está parado.
The surge in demand for electric tuk-tuks comes as a direct result of U.S. President Trump's January executive order, which threatens tariffs on any country supplying oil to Cuba. While these electric vehicles offer a range of nearly 100 kilometers per charge, drivers warn that rising costs for parts and maintenance are forcing fare hikes. For residents, the tuk-tuk is no longer a novelty, but a necessity in a city where the bus has become a memory.
A través de que el transporte público se cerró, ya automáticamente estos son los que están funcionando. Aquí no hay guagua, las guaguas no existen.
Current modes of travel in Havana are electric tuk-tuks, limited state-owned ferry vehicles, hitchhiking, and walking for short distances. While residents express hope for a diplomatic resolution, the reality underground remains grim. The U.S. maintains that the sanctions are necessary to curb foreign influence and pressure the Cuban government. But for the people waiting under the Havana sun, the measures represent a daily struggle for basic mobility. As long as the pumps remain dry, the city's future remains tied to the battery life of its smallest vehicles. This has been Jane Coniter, Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Chinese President Xi Jinping toured Beijing ahead of the Lunar New Year, inspecting preparations and extending festive greetings as the capital gears up for the country's most important holiday. Daniela Paulite has the news.
President Xi Jinping visited several locations in Beijing ahead of the Lunar New Year, extending holiday greetings and reviewing efforts to ensure smooth and safe festivities. Xi interacted with local residents, vendors, and workers as red lanterns and traditional decorations lined the streets of the Chinese capital. The visit highlighted preparations ranging from market supply checks to public safety measures during the holiday period. During the tour, Xi presented the importance of maintaining stable prices and sufficient supplies and essential goods. As millions are expected to travel and celebrate the Spring Festival with their families, authorities across China have stepped up transportation coordination, crowd management, and emergency response readiness to accommodate the annual surge in travel, known as the world's largest human migration. The Lunar New Year, also called the Spring Festival, marks the beginning of the lunar calendar and is one of the most significant holidays in China, symbolizing reunion, renewal, and prosperity. Officials say efforts remain focused on ensuring a safe, orderly, and festive atmosphere for the celebrations in Beijing and across the country. The Lunar New Year festivities are set to begin in the coming days, with cultural performances, family gatherings, and traditional customs expected to take center stage nationwide. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulita, SMNI News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in Washington ahead of White House talks with President Donald Trump. Talks between the two leaders will be held later, but before that, Netanyahu met at Blair House with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to discuss ongoing negotiations with Iran. Netanyahu earlier reiterated that Iran would be a central topic of his discussions with Trump. Last week, his office stressed that any negotiations must include limitations on ballistic missiles and a halting of the support for the Iranians' access. On the other hand, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei called on the United States to act independently of Israeli influence. The spokesperson also ruled out any alteration to the existing framework of nuclear negotiations. He also confirmed that talks on this matter would continue in the same form they have been conducted at this stage, with due consideration for an appropriate understanding about the timing and location of the upcoming rounds. China has warned that Taiwan would face catastrophic disasters if it provokes war, following reports the island is considering a potential preemptive strike using U.S.-supplied weapons. Prince Tripoli tells us more.
China's Ministry of National Defense warned that any move by Taiwan toward provoking armed conflict would result in what it described as catastrophic consequences. The remarks came after media reports suggested that Taiwan is assessing options for a potential preemptive response strategy, possibly involving advanced weaponry purchase from the United States. According to China's Defense Ministry, Beijing firmly opposes any form of Taiwan independence activity and reiterated that the People's Liberation Army remains prepared to safeguard China's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
从前推武器部署到发动所谓先制打击，台独分子的想法越来越荒诞不经、自不量力。在解放军的强大实力面前，台独武装若胆敢挑起战端，必遭灭顶之灾。
Beijing also criticized Washington's continued arms sales to Taipei, calling them a serious interference in China's internal affairs and a factor that undermines regional stability. Taiwan, which Beijing considers a breakaway province, has increased defense spending in recent years amid rising military pressure from the mainland. But Taipei maintains that its military posture is defensive and aimed at deterring aggression. The United States, Taiwan's primary security partner, has expanded military cooperation with the island, while reiterating its One China policy and opposition to unilateral changes to the status quo. Tensions across the Taiwan Strait have remained high, with both sides conducting military exercises and sharpening rhetoric in recent months. Beijing has repeatedly warned against what it sees as foreign interference and separatist moves, as cross-strait relations continue to be a major flashpoint in the region. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, SMNI News.
Up next, the state of emergency has been declared in Colombia as flood-swamped Monteria and Cordoba after relentless rains. At least 14 are dead and tens of thousands of homes are destroyed, with a night curfew now enforced. And in Argentina, Santa Fe police officers seeking higher pay faced off with colleagues. A sit-in at Rosario HQ led to barricades and criminal probes for abandonment of service. More news when Newsline World returns.
Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Uy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Eto ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Eto naman sayo.
Kuya, yung share
eto
ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila. Easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
Ikaw ba ay namomroblema sa taas ng electric bill buwan-buwan? Huwag mag-alala, narito ang ilang paraan upang makatipid sa kuryente. Patayin ang mga ilaw at appliances kapag hindi ginagamit. Sa halip ay gumamit ng natural na liwanag upang makatipid sa kuryente. Tanggalin sa saksakan ang mga appliances kung hindi ginagamit. Iwasan ang paggamit ng maraming appliances ng sabay-sabay. Gumamit ng LED bulbs. Ito ay mas tipid sa kuryente kumpara sa mga incandescent at fluorescent bulbs. Regular na linisin ang mga appliances tulad ng electric fan, aircon vents at refrigerator. Magkaroon ng takdang araw sa isang linggo sa pamamalansya at paglalaba. Gumamit ng energy-efficient appliances. Tandaan, maging wais sa paggamit ng kuryente upang makatipid para mas gumaan ang buhay. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
A standoff in Argentine province of Santa Fe has turned violent after police officers demanding better pay and working conditions clashed with their own colleagues. What began as a sit-in outside the Rosario headquarters escalated into repression and barricades, prompting the provincial government to launch criminal investigations into what they call as abandonment of service. Joy Tabanao reports.
In an unprecedented scene in Rosario, uniformed officers found themselves on the opposite side of a police line this Tuesday. The demonstration, supported by families and dozens of patrol vehicles, was called to protest the dire economic conditions facing the Santa Fe Provincial Police. Relatives of the officers claim that personnel are forced to pay for their own boots, uniform, and even bulletproof vests because the state fails to provide them. Tensions peak when plainclothes officers move in to disperse the group, leading to what witnesses describe as police-on-police repression.
De mejora salarial, no puede ser con policía cobren menos de $1 millón, salen a la calle, no saben si van a volver. Los hijos lo estamos esperando en casa, yo no sé si a mi mamá le va a pasar algo, si no, hoy la voy a tener, mañana no. Viven en la calle, no comen, pasan frío, pasan hambre y nadie les da respuesta.
The protesters are demanding better pay from Governor Maximiliano Puyaro. They said the soaring inflation has made it impossible to cover basic costs like rent and food, let alone school supplies for the upcoming semester. However, the provincial government has taken a hardline stance. Security Minister Pablo Cocochoni announced that 20 officers have already been placed on administrative availability for allegedly using state patrol cars to block the headquarters, a move he labeled as a criminal neglect of duty.
La situación económica del país es la peor que tenemos. Desde que vino este gobierno, la plata no alcanza. Que no se olviden que los chicos el mes que viene empiezan la escuela. Los policías no tienen para comprarles los útiles.
Minimum salary above 1 million pesos, operational resources such as state-funded uniforms and vests. There has been an administrative fallout with 20 officers suspended and criminal investigations pending. As the barricades were cleared by force, the conflict remains far from resolved. The government warned that more sanctions are coming, while the families of the officers insist that Santa Fe is in decline and that they will continue to fight for a wage that reflects the life-threatening risks their loved ones take every day on the streets. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
A catastrophic flooding emergency has engulfed the city of Monteria and the wider Cordoba region after relentless heavy rains caused rivers to burst their banks. With at least 14 people are dead and tens of thousands of homes destroyed, authorities have declared a state of emergency and imposed a nighttime curfew to prevent further loss of life amid the rising waters. More on this from Valde Vinagracia.
The streets of Monteria have been transformed into treacherous waterways. Drone footage captured this Tuesday reveals the scale of the devastation, with entire neighborhoods submerged. Residents left with no other choice are seen navigating the waist-deep floods using inflatable mattresses and makeshift wooden rafts to salvage what little remains of their belongings. Governor Erasmo Zaleta reported that a staggering 80% of the Cordoba department is currently underwater. In a drastic move to ensure public safety, Monteria City Hall has established a curfew for 11 sectors in Commune 1. Starting from February 9 until February 17, residents are prohibited from being outdoors between 8 o'clock p.m. and 6 o'clock a.m. This measure aims to prevent accidents and looting in areas where houses are almost entirely underwater. Nationwide, the death toll from this cold front has climbed to at least 14, with 9,000 homes destroyed. The National Unit for Disaster Risk Management, or UNGRD, has launched a large-scale humanitarian operation. 10 tons of aid, including food, water, and medical supplies, are being distributed across the most ravaged municipalities in Cordoba. However, with more rain forecasted in the coming days, the race against time continues to evacuate those still trapped in the flood zones. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Valde Vinagracia, SMNI News.
A major vaccination drive is underway in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where a growing measles outbreak is putting thousands of children at risk. Carla Abellana has the story.
In South Kivu's Irambo Health Zone, long queues of mothers and infants formed outside clinics as health workers rushed to contain the spread. Medical teams administered vaccines while urging families to monitor symptoms and seek treatment early. According to health officials, the virus is now circulating across much of the province, prompting emergency containment measures. Frontline responders say misinformation and fear are hampering containment. Some parents are refusing hospital care or isolation for infected children. Doctors warn that their refusal is fueling transmission in schools and communities. Since the start of the outbreak, more than 2,000 cases and 8 deaths have been confirmed across most of South Kivu's health zones. The figures add to an already alarming trend, with last year's outbreak leaving hundreds dead and thousands more infected. DRC authorities are now prioritizing vaccinations for children under 5, who face the highest risk of complications. A broader immunization campaign covering the entire province is scheduled in the coming months as health officials work to halt the spread and prevent further child fatalities. For God in My Beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
When we return, a legal bar rule could derail 3 impeachment bids against the Vice President Sara Duterte under the 1-year bar. Analysts say they could violate the ban on multiple proceedings in a year. And finally, a Hollywood director and a rock star are demanding their work be pulled from the Millennia documentary. They say the Phantom Thread score was used without approval. More news after the break.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo? Isipin mo ito. Nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod. Pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakaka-depress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan. Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka na ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman diyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen. Magbasa. Makipagkwentuhan. Magdasal. maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago.
Maging ligtas, maging handa. Narito ang ilang paalala kung sakaling tumama ang lindol. Maghanda ng emergency kits na may lamang flashlight, pito, first aid kit, tubig at pagkain. Alamin ang emergency exits sa inyong bahay, paaralan o opisina. Habang lumilindol, magtago sa ilalim ng matibay na lamesa upang maprotektahan ang sarili sa mga nahuhulog na bagay. Lumayo sa mga bintana at mabibigat na gamit na maaaring mahulog. Kung ikaw ay nasa labas, lumayo sa mga gusali, puno o poste na maaaring matumba. Kung ikaw ay nagmamaneho, itabi at ihinto ang sasakyan at lumabas. Pagkatapos ng lindol, gamitin ang hagdan sa paglabas ng gusali at huwag gumamit ng elevator. Maging alerto sa aftershocks at manatili sa open space kung kinakailangan. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Three impeachment complaints filed against Philippine Vice President Sara Duterte could be thrown out, says a political commentator, citing a possible violation of the constitutional one-year bar rule. Daniela Paulite has the details.
Three separate impeachment complaints filed by left-leaning groups, civil society organizations, and religious institutions against Vice President Sara Duterte may face dismissal. Political commentator Jay Sonza made the remarks in an interview with SMNI News, referring in particular to the first two complaints filed before the expiration of the constitutionally mandated one-year bar rule. Sonza assessed that the grounds cited in the third complaint show little difference from an earlier impeachment case that was dismissed in 2025. The complaints center on allegations of the alleged misuse of confidential funds by the Office of the Vice President, as well as during Duterte's tenure as Secretary of the Department of Education.
Ang unang tingin natin dyan, sa basurahan ang pupulutin yan, kasi malinaw na malinaw yung pagkakasabi ng Supreme Court, not once but twice, doon sa desisyon nila at doon sa desisyon sa motion for reconsideration na dalawang beses sinulit doon. Sa 6 ng Pebrero, saka lamang pwedeng magsampa ng panibagong article of impeachment. Kung tatanggapin nila yung dalawa, mate-technical yun, sa madaling salita, hindi naman pwedeng maraming beses dahil meron tayong isa lang ang pwedeng impeachment. So madaling salita, parang sa basura din pupulutin yung pangatlo.
Sonza went on to say the House of Representatives now appears like an impeachment complaints factory because of the volume of cases being filed. However, it remains to be seen whether the complaints will withstand scrutiny if elevated to the Supreme Court. He also claimed the cases were intended to damage the Vice President's reputation, but argued that the public has become more aware of what he described as political tactics aimed at destabilizing the government, including the Office of the Vice President.
They will not stop into vilifying the Vice President. Ang tingin ko riyan na itong dami ng bilang, yung mga ganitong mga akusasyon, these are all intended to vilify the Vice President, hoping na bababa yung kanyang public acceptance at masisira yung kanyang image bago mag-2028 elections.
Sonza further believes that some groups will continue filing cases against Duterte. The first two new impeachment complaints against Vice President Duterte were filed on February 2, 2026, while the third complaint was submitted on February 9. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. pledged to reduce the country's classroom shortage by strengthening collaboration between the Department of Education and local government units, with plans to construct about 4,000 new classrooms nationwide. President Catarong reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Wednesday witnessed the signing of a memorandum of agreement between the Department of Education and local governments aimed at accelerating classroom construction across the country. Under the first phase of the partnership, the government plans to build around 4,000 new classrooms to help address the country's ongoing shortage of learning facilities. Marcos said the agreement formalizes cooperation between DepEd and provincial governments to ensure Filipino students have safe and adequate spaces for learning.
I have seen many of the struggles that our students, our teachers, and our parents face when having to send their children to school. They are studying and dreaming of a better future in poorly built facilities, cramped spaces, and sometimes no facilities at all.
As of December 2025, the Philippines faces a shortage of about 145,000 classrooms, a gap the administration seeks to urgently reduce.
How we have allowed this to become such a bad situation, cannot understand.
The president stressed that the government cannot afford to wait several more years to provide students with comfortable learning environments. Under the agreement, DepEd will set technical standards, provide classroom designs, and allocate funding, while LGUs will handle procurement and oversee construction. Marcos said empowering local governments will help speed up implementation and minimize delays. For the initial rollout, 9.6 billion pesos has been allocated. Of this, 4.1 billion pesos will fund the construction of approximately 1,200 classrooms by provincial governments, while over 5 billion pesos will cover the delivery of around 2,800 prefabricated classrooms by DepEd. The initiative is backed by the 2026 General Appropriations Act, which earmarks 85.39 billion pesos for basic education facilities. Marcos assured that no project will be completed without written validation from DepEd, confirming compliance with national standards, emphasizing full transparency in implementing the agreement. In addition to expanding classroom capacity, the president highlighted the importance of improving digital connectivity in schools, noting that nearly 34,000 public schools already have internet access. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been President Catarong, SMNI News.
The Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, CICC, has warned the public about the rising numbers of spoofing incidents, a form of cybercrime in which scammers pose as acquaintances or trusted individuals or institutions to obtain sensitive information, money, or data. Angel Pastor reports.
The CICC expressed concern over the continued spread of spoofing messages. Cybercriminals use spoofing to impersonate high-ranking officials or government agencies to spread false information and obtain sensitive data. Scammers use email, caller ID manipulation, and mirror social media accounts, as well as the messaging application through the messaging application Signal to make their messages appear legitimate. According to CICC Executive Director Undersecretary Renato Aboy Paraiso, it is difficult to trace those behind the spoofing scams because number credentials are hidden in the Signal app, requiring coordination with the app provider itself.
Ang mahirap host kasi sa Signal, kaya ito yung naging choice of platform nila. Hindi nakatago yung number credential. Ibig sabihin hindi namin makuha kaagad yung numbers unless we talk to the application provider itself, si Signal mismo. Hindi natin makuha yung credential. Hindi namin mabaga do sa SIM card registration details.
Paraiso also revealed that just last week the agency received complaints from high-ranking government officials regarding spoofing messages. These reportedly included members of Congress, heads of government agencies, particularly PCSO General Manager Mel Robles, and even the President. Scammers usually target official work numbers and use the names of well-known officials to make messages appear legitimate even if they originate from a different number.
Itong over the weekend, maraming mga officials, members of Congress, ang nakausap ko mga heads of agencies at yun nga, yung Malacanang sinabi pati si President na ini-spoof daw over the weekend.
The agency is also concerned about fake transactions linked to government projects, particularly flood control, which may be used against government officials.
Ang pinaka-alarming sa amin, yung manner ng mga text is parang nakikipag-transaction sa mga government officials regarding the flood control scandal. So, iniisip namin baka magamit siya as parang ebidensya para i-frame or ipahamak yung mga government officials natin. Kahit wala naman silang, hindi nila kilala kung sino yung kausap nila.
As a result, the CICC is coordinating with the National Telecommunications Commission or NTC and other government agencies to possibly block signal if it fails to comply with government directives. Based on CICC data, 70 high-impact spoofing incidents were recorded in 2025. Most of these involved smishing or SMS-based spoofing at 43%, followed by unauthorized transactions at 22% and illegal access at 21%. The CICC reminded the public that legitimate government agencies do not ask for sensitive information or urgent payments through text messages or social media. Red flags include threatening or urgent messages and links that do not end in .gov.ph. The public is therefore urged to immediately report any suspicious messages to prevent more people from falling victim to online scams. Reporting for Newsline World, Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
A filmmaker and a composer have asked for their music to be removed from the documentary of First Lady Melania Trump, while the Spice Girls hint at a reunion with a Royal Mint commemorative coin. Blake Ann has all the buzz.
Filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson and composer Johnny Greenwood have reportedly requested that music from the 2017 film Phantom Thread be taken out of the documentary Melania. The issue centers on a segment in the documentary that features an extended excerpt of Greenwood's composition Barbara Rose, originally written for the Oscar-winning film. According to reports, Anderson and Greenwood did not authorize the use of the track in the documentary and have formally asked for its removal. Greenwood, best known as the lead guitarist of the band Radiohead, composed a critically acclaimed score for Phantom Thread, which starred Daniel Day-Lewis and received multiple Academy Award nominations. It remains unclear under what circumstances the music was included in the documentary or whether licensing permissions were secured prior to its use. Neither representatives for the documentary nor for Melania Trump have publicly responded to the reported request. The Spice Girls have hinted that a reunion could be in the works following news that a band will be honored with a commemorative coin. According to reports, the beloved girl group will join other British music legends such as the Rolling Stones, Queen, George Michael, and Shirley Bassey in receiving the special recognition from the Royal Mint. The coin is expected to celebrate the group's cultural impact and enduring popularity since their rise to fame in the 1990s, when hits like Wanna Be and Spice Up Your Life dominated global charts. Fans have taken the announcement as a possible precursor to new projects or tour plans, although no official confirmation of a reunion has been made by the band or their management. The Royal Mint has previously issued coins honoring musical icons, making this the latest in a series celebrating the United Kingdom's rich music history. While details remain scarce, the commemorative coin has sparked excitement among fans, fueling a speculation about the potential Spice Girls comeback in the near future. And that's all for now. I'm Blake Ann, bringing you the latest showbiz.
In sports, Cade Cunningham scored 33 points as the Detroit Pistons halted Charlotte's 9-game winning streak with a 110-104 victory, a physical contest that descended into chaos following a third-quarter brawl in Charlotte. Meanwhile, a disappointing start to the 2026 Winter Games has put the spotlight firmly on American star Michaela Schifrin after a shocking finish in the women's team combined slalom in Cortina d'Ampezzo. Carlo De La Peña tells us more.
The Eastern Conference leading Detroit Pistons outlasted the surging Charlotte Hornets in a physical contest that erupted into chaos midway through the third quarter. The flashpoint came when Musa Diabate fouled Jalen Duren, leading to a face-to-face confrontation and a bench-clearing brawl with punches thrown. After a lengthy stoppage, 4 players were ejected: Duren and Isaiah Stewart for Detroit, and Diabate and Miles Bridges for Charlotte. Stewart has rushed off the bench, while Bridges appeared to throw a punch during a melee. Tempers flared again in the fourth quarter when Hornets head coach Charles Lee was ejected after angrily disputing a foul call and had to be restrained by his staff. Despite the incidents, Lee praised Charlotte's effort, while Pistons coach J.B. Bickerstaff said Detroit did not initiate the fight and that Duren acted in self-defense. Detroit's 110-104 win lifted them to 39-13, clear at the top of Eastern Conference. Charlotte dropped to 25-29, staying 10th. Elsewhere in the NBA, Orlando beat Milwaukee 118-99, Utah Jazz upset the Miami, and Brooklyn defeated Chicago. Meanwhile, widely regarded as the greatest slalom skier of all time, Shiffrin struggled in the final run, skiing cautiously and finishing 15th out of 18, her worst result in more than a decade. The poor run dropped Team USA out of medical contention, leaving them 4th overall. While Shiffrin faltered, teammates Jacqueline Wiles and Paula Moldzan held on to win bronze, celebrating as Shiffrin accepted consolation from downhill gold medalist Breezy Johnson. The result has been renewed questions about Shiffrin's Olympic form, recalling her media-less campaign at the 2022 Beijing Games, where she recorded multiple DNFs and failed to podium. With Lindsey Vonn sidelined, Shiffrin now carries the light of U.S. expectations and has only 2 remaining chances to medal the giant slalom and the slalom later in the Games. Despite the setback, Shiffrin remained composed, saying she gained valuable feedback from the run but never found the comfort needed to ski at full speed. The pressure now intensifies as the Olympic schedule narrows for one of the sport's most decorated champions. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
And before we end, may be inspired by the words of the sun. Discipline and sacrifice are the ingredients to success. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.